Thank you. Now I stand between this room and a beer, so I'll try and keep it as brief and concise as I can, and provide a overarching view of where I see Australian horticulture and the many different sectors that we participate in. So I'll just give you a brief introduction as to what Hortus does and the organisation that we run and our involvement in the horticultural industry. The bigger picture of what we can do with how we think about attacking an export market and what to do about it. There's various divisions within Hortus. We're a staff of about 22, 23 now. We have a dedicated research and development division that focuses on the development of new chemicals for use in horticultural crops, so crop safety and efficacy research trials. Our agronomists have about 20 growers each that they monitor weekly for pest and disease prevalence, and we basically manage all of the agronomic inputs, given written recommendations to all of those growers on a weekly basis. That enables us to identify pests and diseases that may need alternate products developed to enable them to be controlled. We have our own ASPAC accredited laboratory where we do sap and soil testing and dry tissue water testing for a whole range of clients. And we have inspectors in the wholesale markets that inspect consignments of product prior to their delivery to their export destinations. So we work closely with the avocado industry, with the zucchinis, tomatoes, citrus. So we try and involve ourselves as far through the supply chain as we possibly can to ensure that our clients, the growers, maintain a sustainable income. We don't just work within agriculture. We've recently diversified with the situation in Australia with the gas companies, pipelines being built through a large number of properties, which covers 420 kilometres by metres wide, which equates to roughly a 3,000 acre farm, farmed by 140 different people, run out of 3 or 4 different countries, with weeds spread very easily, pests being spread very easily, and the necessity to revegetate that area being scrutinised by everybody. So we have agronomists that have now been engaged by the gas companies to oversee the agronomic management of the farms, the soil, the weeds, the length of the pipeline, which is an exciting development. It's not horticulture, but it's exporting resources and it's managing farms. It's just how you perceive, where you restrict your thinking to. We do a lot of research work for large fertilizer companies that are wanting to launch their products onto the Australian market, existing companies such as DuPont that have had a long history of working here that want to work with us to, I suppose they identify the relationship that us as consultants and agronomists with our growers, the importance of this collaborative approach to working with clients as opposed to just marketing and selling a product on the market where we work through the whole process with everybody. We have a huge diversity of expertise within the organisation. We have PhD industrial chemists, we've got entomologists, we've got IT app developers, we've got rural technologists, we've got traditional agronomists. So there's horticulture and exporting and production is not restricted purely to growing. It's got to be a wholly inclusive approach. So basically, growing for export, I'll run through whether to grow, who to grow for, what to grow, how much to grow, when to grow it, where to grow it, and how to grow it. So very simple questions that we'll just run through, and they form the basis of your decision making on what potential there is for horticultural exports into the future. If you can't address these basic questions and gain an understanding, then deciding what the potential export income for Australian horticulture producers is very difficult. First off, who to grow for. we've been through all the different channels. I suppose what I want to reiterate is each person has to ask themselves these questions on a regular basis to maintain their focus on their business and what they're doing. Whether you're targeting a wholesaler or an agent to sell product on your behalf, whether you're building your organization to service the needs of supermarkets and specifically package for them and get long-term contracts where you grow specific quantities in specific packaging that you plan a long way in advance. Whether you're selling to a bulk importer in Singapore or in Hong Kong or in Bangkok, you have to understand where your product is going thoroughly and understand the partnerships you make with those buyers in each of those countries. Or whether, as been touched on here, that you're dealing with direct with consumers. They all require a completely different mode of operation. Your cost structures that need to be adjusted to cater for your target market. But basically it comes down to a reliable, well-resourced customer in a sound economy and a sound industry. We're working in horticulture, but there's so many sub-industries within horticulture. There's so many sub-professions. At the end of the day, you want a good paying customer that you can work collaboratively with in an industry that's growing. And I suppose we've tried to diversify that, sampling rigs in the Arcadia Valley, taking soil tests for pipelines. So they both, the two employees there are horticultural agronomists, but they're classifying soil for a well-resourced customer. What to grow? That should be driven by the profitability. If you're making the decision on what product you're going to grow for export, or whichever market you choose, and that's got to be driven by the consumer demand. And then your ability to successfully execute the production of whatever you choose has got to be based on the knowledge bank that you can draw together to enable you to execute that effectively. And so selecting an industry or a particular crop, you need to be able to pull together all the available resources that enable you to deliver quality, because that's the one thing that will never be compromised in an export market. As soon as the quality drops, the demand drops, and then it's a downward spiral. And then the climatic suitability, whether it's climate from an environmental perspective, the economic perspective, or political. Couple of graphs. I'm sure you had a gut full of graphs, but we will just run through these couple of things that I just pulled out of FAO stat. So this is the dollar value to production quantity ratio, which is what I think should be the main thing that you basically look at. It's the margin you're going to make. So I basically pulled the information from two sets of data and merged it together to give us, this is the ranking of horticultural exports in the top 20. So grapes was 7th, potatoes 14th, tomatoes 16th. So almonds were way and above. When we're looking at how much to grow, obviously you've got to cater for the demand, and understanding your partner in the destination that you're sending your product has got to be first and foremost. You have to understand their customers, not just them as your customer. You have to understand who they are selling to, because if you're exporting product, you're never selling direct to a consumer. You're always going through somebody, because as an Australian organisation, I haven't come across anybody effectively selling to the end user in any country. The South Africans have got there's one company successfully selling grapes where they've set up their own stalls in China, and they're able to sell to people, to supermarkets and to agents, but they're still not dealing direct with consumers.